This Monday.com ad was created by a team of people and AI agents. Reese, our content agent, wrote the copy based on our best practices, like mentioning Monday.com 3 times. That was the second. Johnny, our coordination agent, built the timeline and kept everyone aligned. Olivia, our human creative director, stayed in the loop. Because agents are great, but they don't always know when a joke lands. She had one note: tell listeners it only takes minutes to build an agent. So, minutes. Create your own AI agent today on Monday.com.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, JoAnn Crone. Hello, my Lolas. Oh my gosh, this episode is for you. If you always tell yourself that you're not consistent, do you do that? Do you say like, oh, I just can't get anything done because I'm not consistent? Well, this is going to give you a whole new outlook on that word consistency, because it's not about being consistent in the way that we think it does. Consistent means showing up imperfectly. And we dig into that all today with our guest, Monica Packer. Monica is a writer. She's a podcaster, coach, and a recovering perfectionist who helps women stop chasing perfection and start building sustainable growth through what she calls practical progress. She's the host of the top-rated About Progress podcast, which has reached millions of women looking for a more realistic way to approach habits, self-care, and personal growth. Monica is also a certified habits and identity coach, a mom of 5, a former middle school teacher, and someone who openly shares the messy reality of trying to grow while raising a family. And Sticky Habits is her latest book. I know that you are going to take so many tidbits away from this interview with Monica. Keep a lookout for when we describe the habit bros. This may be why you have this mindset about you being inconsistent. And hey, if you're listening on Spotify, can you hit that follow button to make sure that the No Guilt Mom podcast gets delivered to you twice a week? Or if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, if you can hit that subscribe. And now let's get on with the show. Monica, something that I'm interested in is because, like, in the No Guilt Mom community, in our inner circle, so many women are so hard on themselves. If like they don't complete their goals, or if they don't do something that they said they wanted to do. And you describe yourself as a recovering perfectionist. Like, how did perfectionism affect you?
It affected me in ways that are hard to put into simple words because it was so deep and multi-layered. But I will just start by saying my own, I guess, inner tangle with perfectionism began out of good intentions. You know, as a young kid turned teenager who just wanted to be good, wanted to be a good person, wanted to be doing well at the things that mattered to me. But I also caught on pretty quick to, almost via osmosis, you know, of what was in our culture and going on at school, and just that to be seen as good, you had to have things to show for it. And as part of that, to get there, the way to do it was by like pure diligence and willpower and self-discipline and just kind of this hustle mentality. And I will say that worked really well for me for a while. And I'm sure a lot of perfectionists in your group would say the same. In many ways, perfectionism can pay off. I had all those achievements, you know, really almost a straight A student by the time I was in college, like all through college with a scholarship and like doing so well with school and everything else that was related to it. I looked like the perfect part. But by the time I was 20, that's when, while it was paying off on the outside, I was paying prices on the inside that became too steep for me to pay anymore. I was struggling with multiple eating disorders and a lot of mental health issues that go with that. So much so that it led to a lot of suicidal ideation. And I went and got help and from just my school counselor, my university counselor, and I'm so grateful for that. But then from there, I was too afraid to try anymore.
Really?
I thought, I was too afraid. I knew the price I had paid for my achievements. And there was something in my subconscious that told me the only way to change was through that model from all or nothing, right? I didn't want to pay that price anymore. I didn't want to go back there. So for my responsibilities, I was a middle school teacher and then a stay-at-home mom. I could show up for those, but for myself, everything was on the sidelines. There were no goals ambitions. There was no self-care to speak of. It was only about just checking off what I need to do for my responsibilities, and for myself, everything was on the wayside. And that's when I was approaching my 30th birthday. So it was a full 10 years of that, when I was similarly really stuck in my life and really struggling with my mental health again. And I had a great therapist who pointed out to me that I was a perfectionist. And I laughed in her face because I thought, no, I'm not.
Right.
I tried to be. I'm not
Yeah.
anymore. And she helped me see I still was.
It's
I
so
didn't
interesting
know.
because like I could so identify with that, where I would have not labeled myself a perfectionist. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't need things to be perfect. I just get them done. It's fine. Like, what exactly did your therapist point out to you where she's like, yes, you're still a perfectionist?
Well, she showed me that waiting and staying on the sidelines was a form of perfectionism. I was waiting for the right time or the right opportunity. I was waiting to have the skill sets before I actually did the work to do them. I was afraid of trying because of failure, of what I thought, like, would it be worth it? I'm not going to get what I want anyway. I was just scared. In many ways, that nothing side of the all or nothing pendulum swing, which is all just a spectrum of perfectionism, was because of the great price I paid before. So a lot of perfectionists will be surprised to know that they are. But if they're finding themselves in an all or nothing pendulum swing battle for their lives, like every day or every season, or if they're really in the all and they're paying prices, or they're really stuck in the nothing and they're paying prices there too, they can see like perfectionism is costing them too much. Perfectionism really is a loss of identity. It's a misplacement of identity on our outcomes, whether we have them or we don't. There's a tremendous amount of shame that is driving our behaviors, whether we're hustling or we're not. Shame is along for the ride. There's a lot of fear of failure, especially, but it all comes back to that root of misplacing our identity on our outcomes. And so learning that helped me decide I needed to find a new way to change and to grow outside of perfectionism. And so that's what began about progress. It was just more of a personal pursuit that then led to so much more.
That is amazing. You mentioned something about concentrating more on your progress rather than perfectionism. And what you said there, like, it is so what happened to me in perfectionism too. Like, I do almost the opposite, actually. I would just try things and throw things at the wall and not look at the results so that I could improve them, because I think I was afraid of, like, if I looked at the results, then it would show that I am imperfect. And so therefore I'm not going to look, and I'm just going to like keep trying and keep trying and keep trying it. And I would make no progress that way whatsoever, because it was like one new thing after another.
Yeah, I think that's very relatable and very illustrative of what this spectrum looks like. You know, you may even find that in many areas of your life, you can adopt that more compassionate mentality around growing and changing in other areas of your life where you just find yourself in that all or nothing cycle or somewhere in between. But yeah, that really illustrates what this looks like. And, you know, progress for me really is just, it's still desiring for things to get better. You know, it's pursuing change, but from a different place. One that is grounded in a sense of knowing, of really valuing our own worth separate of our outcomes, and also on a path that is allowed to be, you know, up and down and curvy. And I'm allowed to pivot. I'm allowed to have mistakes. I'm allowed to have frustrations and disappointments. That doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. I'm allowed to take a look at my outcomes that I don't like and really let them inform how to move forward. I mean, that's a large part of what this shift is from perfectionism. It's not apathy. It's changing in a different way. And when you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to be human and actually look at things, then you're able to stay on the path and actually persist, truly persist.
It's funny. Have you ever watched the show The Good Place?
I've only seen a few episodes. It's been quite a while, but
in The Good Place, they have this idea of how time works. And I always like to think of it in terms of how like progress works as well. Because for them, like time doesn't go in a linear path. It goes in a Jeremy bear me. And what that means is like, you know, if you think of writing the word in cursive, Jeremy bear me, it's like a lot of like ups and downs and backs and forths, and like thinking about progress in that way, that there will always be setbacks, I feel is so helpful in like actually pursuing things you want or pursuing like ways to get better too. Why do you think perfectionism makes it so hard for moms in particular to sustain habits that they want to put in place?
In large part, this is because that's how habits are taught.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, I think we even learned this about how to form habits in 8th grade health class, right? Like to get a habit, you decide what habit you want. You start Monday and you keep it for 21, 28, or 30 days.
Yes.
And then you have a habit.
Right.
What they're teaching us there is this is rigidity. This is not reflective of a real life. That's based on an ideal, even robotic and very predictable life. And we as women don't have that luxury. And I'll illustrate that a little bit more because that's a whole other missing piece of this puzzle. And this is something I tangled with myself because I was working a lot on how to make progress outside of perfectionism. That started largely with the identity work of figuring out, well, so who is Monica if I'm not my outcomes? If all of my outcomes never came to pass, or all of that I've even done or that I'm doing, even with my roles and responsibilities were to go away, who am I? That was a big part of the beginning of this path. And I made a lot of progress in that area. And I feel like I knew better than I was than ever, but my day-to-day life wasn't supporting that self. And so that's when I had to try to do an even scarier experiment for me, which was applying what I learned about progress to habits. And I first started by, following these models that were in the best-selling books at the time. And
Atomic Habits is what comes to mind for me.
Yeah, there's several. Yeah. There's several actually, and there's a lot of good in them. And but I would try and I would fail, and I would try and I would fail. But then when my clients really were doing the same thing, by that point I had been certified as a coach, and a big part of my coaching certification was about habits. So I was like, okay, let's go. Like I have the most up-to-date methods. Like let's do this. And when they had the same experience of trying and failing, I had the opportunity to get more objective than I even had been able to on my own because I knew these women. I knew they weren't lazy. I knew they weren't unmotivated. I knew they were responsible and smart, that they could follow through, and yet things weren't working. And they got to the point where they were labeling themselves as lazy or like, I can't follow through, or I'm not consistent. And I had to really take a look and say, like, well, if these women who I know so well are failing, maybe it's not us who are failing, but it's the methods that are failing us. And that's when I kind of had this eureka moment for myself where I realized all the methods we were learning from were written by men.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like 92% of the productivity books or something like that are written by men.
Yes. The self-help and even wellness industry are hugely dominated by men. And if not, the few that are women have more of that masculine approach. Like just they carry on that same, today's your day. Like you're the only one that can change your life. You just have to have consistency. You just have to have willpower. You just have to be disciplined. But what they're missing is women's lives are different from men's lives. And the number one reason why, and there's multiple reasons, but the number one reason why is invisible labor. Invisible labor is the unseen, often undervalued if unvalued, and underpaid if paid labor that is necessary to keep families, homes, communities, and even workplaces afloat. They are literally what run the world. This is stuff like replacing the toilet paper roll and keeping cleaning product stock to knowing who needs to be where and when. It's signing up all kids up for all the sports, getting them all the right uniforms, putting up it all on the calendar. It's grocery shopping, it's cleaning, but it's all the mental load that goes with it. And so even if you have a supportive partner, 2/3 of the labor that you're performing to keep the household running is interior. It's conceiving and planning.
You know what I wish existed when my kids were little? Great Wolf Lodge. An indoor water park inside your hotel where it's always 84 degrees, especially living in Phoenix where the sidewalks burn your toes. That would have been amazing. At Great Wolf Lodge, the whole family gets to splash around in a massive indoor water park with a wave pool, a lazy river, and water slides that you can all ride together. But here's what's really cool about it. They also have Magi Quest, which is a live action adventure game kids play throughout the entire lodge. It's like the magic never stops and your kids are always occupied. Between the Northern Lights Arcade, the great dining options, and the complimentary dance parties nightly, there's genuinely something for everyone all under one roof. No packing up and driving somewhere every hour. No, I'm bored. Just connection, fun, and honestly, a little magic for you too. With 22 lodges across the country, there's probably one close to you. Check it out at greatwolf.com and bring your pack together.
Hi, it's Sierra Miller. I can't wait for you to check out my new collection of shoes and accessories at Designer Shoe Warehouse. If you love shoes as much as I do, then trust me, I got you. From cute sneakerinas to the perfect flip-flops to stunning heels, these shoes are all style, no drama. It's a girl's girl summer, and DSW has just the shoes. Shop the Sierra Miller collection right now at your DSW store or dsw.com.
I remember the first time we started allowance with my daughter, I told her, yes, of course you can buy that. How much do you have in your allowance? And that question changed everything because suddenly she was doing the math, not me. We went to a musical and she walked up to the merch stand, looked at a t-shirt and went, $40? That's so much money. That sentence never came out of her mouth before she had her own money to think about. That's exactly what Cash App's managed accounts for kids 6 to 12 are built for. Whether it's $5 from allowance or $40 birthday money from grandma, it all counts and it all stays with them as they grow up. No subscription fees, no minimum balance, just real practice making real decisions while you're still the one guiding it from your own app. If you're ready to start teaching money habits without adding more stress to your plate, download Cash App and set up a managed account for your child today. For a limited time, new Cash App customers who are parents can use our exclusive referral code FAMILY10 to earn $10. Download Cash App, enter the referral code in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you will receive $10. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Cash App Visa Debit Flex cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC, and the Bancorp Bank NA, pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc. See terms and conditions for the Sutton Prepaid Card, Sutton Debit Flex Card, and Bancorp Debit Flex Card. Savings and offers provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Parents and legal guardians can open a managed account for kids 6 to 12. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. So I'm interested in this particular portion of Atomic Habits always stands out to me. It's mentioned to me where he's describing a bicycle team, and I can't remember which one it is. It's a racing team, and they wanted to improve. And so they concentrated on all those little habits, like making sure their tires were inflated to the right amount and making sure that everything was completely clean. And the point of that chapter was that all of the little things that you do every day consistently are the things that make a difference. And so the internal story that I believe many women get from that is okay, I'm just not doing things consistently enough for me to improve. How does that invisible labor component affect that?
This is the best question of all, because it's one thing to say women carry more invisible labor than men. That's a fact. That's not about politics. It's not about religion. It's not about culture where they live. This is worldwide. This is in every single country. In America alone, women at home. And this is women who work, who don't, who work, have kids who don't. The average is we spend 4 hours on work at home, doing homework, housework stuff. I'm not talking about homework for school, and men spend 2. In India, that disparity is 6 to 1. So regardless of where you live in the world, this is the reality. Because of that, we have less time. It's a fact. We have less time. We also have less energy because we are doing more in less time. We have far more interruptions. We have far less predictability. So where these habit methods get us wrong is they are based too much on willpower. Another word for that is energy. We have less of it, okay? And they also are very dependent on predictability. A big part of invisible labor is all related to relationships. A large part of what we do is very urgent in nature because there's a person behind it on the other side who needs that thing done right then or needs help right then or, is interrupting, which is another part of it. So it's more urgent. We have more interruptions and they're missing that. And when they talk about consistency, they are missing these factors. We have the less time and energy. We have less support. We have more interruptions. We don't have that same level of predictability and willpower, not because we don't have the strength of heart, but because we literally don't have the energy. We can't have that endless bank of energy that just keeps getting refilled constantly. So their form of consistency is based on a world we don't share. And it's also based in perfectionism. It's this rigid perfectionism. And so what we can start doing, JoAnn, and maybe this will be helpful for your community to hear, is we need to redefine consistency. Consistency is doing your best most of the time over time.
Yes, absolutely.
Your best is allowed to change. Okay. It's not perfection. Mm-hmm. And then most of the time, your target is more times than not. And over time, you're playing the long game. That's something the self-help world doesn't like to talk about either. Change takes time. It's not overnight.
The part that many women, and especially many of my clients, get tripped up on is, what is your best? Because that is such a subjective thing. And it's something that we kind of apply to kids as well. Like, we're like, we just want you to do your best. However, if they don't get that A, which we know they're capable of, we accuse them of not doing their best. So it's like your best gets equated with this perfectionism. How can we start to redefine what your best means?
This is where a big part of why we must do habits differently as women is back to listening to our actual selves. What we truly know we want and need, what our actual best is for the day, instead of always trying to put a square peg in a round hole. What is truly our best? And it also goes back to this prescription part. A big part of why consistency fails us, not we are failing at consistency, the form that they've taught us, is because it is so prescription bound. Like, in order to exercise, it looks like this. We can all answer that question. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's again another health science question. Like, I have to exercise for 30 minutes at least 3 to 5 days a week, but really that's like the bare minimum. And I'm usually hear far more than that from most women on what a prescription is. We're working with a model of consistency that helps us think the only standard is perfect, and that if anything less than perfect isn't our best. So we have to reframe what consistency is. And as part of that, allow ourselves to actually trust ourselves and be intuitive about what we truly do want and need. And with that, make our own prescriptions from knowing of the habits of this like long litany that we have of what habits make a good person. Which of these will actually support me? Because we don't just need to redefine consistency. We need to redefine habits. Habits are supportive. That's their only job. They are in service to us.
To be like beaten down by us. They're not like a measure of like how self-critical that we could be of ourselves. It's something that helps us run our day easier.
That's right. Habits are helpers is like the simplest way I can say that. So when we know that, and we know we're working with like models that don't fit reality, then we can choose habits that are actually right for us, and we can prescribe them in ways that are right for us too.
Yeah.
And because we know at the end of the day, the habits that I choose as touch points to my day, because being a habit person doesn't mean your whole life is like guided by one habit after the next. You have a couple touch points to a day that helps you feel like yourself, and the rest of your day is where you live.
Right.
It's where you get things done. It's where you have hobbies or connect or relax, or you're allowed to not have it all perfect. Then you can do habits a lot differently and actually get the support you deserve from the habits.
Just to make it like really concrete for people, I think I have an example that like illustrates this. So there's a new gym that opened up down the street from my house. It's amazing. I've been looking forward to it opening for like the past 4 months. One thing that I wanted to start is not necessarily an exercise routine, but I wanted to start a routine that made me want to exercise.
Yeah.
So like in the past, I have gone so gung-ho, being really strict with myself, really stringent, be like, oh, you have to go this day. Oh, you have to go that day. Oh, you're not going. Oh, you're lazy. Like, this is the internal dialogue. And this time I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I am not pushing myself to so hard of a place physically that I don't want to get up and go.
Brilliant.
So, for example, this morning, there is this class at the gym called GTX, and it's like kind of like an Orange Theory class. I had been to the gym 2 days prior, and I was supposed to go this morning at 6 to this class. I woke up this morning, Monica, so tired just from all the events going on, from exercising the past 2 days. And I was like, you know what? My body, it doesn't want to go and exercise, but I wanted to keep up the habit. So I did go to the gym, and I just laid on the hydro massage beds for 20 minutes.
Brilliant.
That's all I did. It was amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So you're illustrating the practical side of this. If I can flesh it out a little bit more for people who are like, well, then how do I do that? One more thing to say about consistency first is we think that consistency and flexibility are competing ideals, but they're complementary. Flexibility makes consistency possible. And I can share about how to do that with a habit. So let's say the old you would say the ideal version of me for working out is I'm going to be at the gym for this long and for these classes this many days a week. And that's a good ideal. And maybe you've actually designed that in a way where it feels right for you. It's something you will look forward to or that feels supportive for you. It doesn't have to be always something you look forward to, but at least the results of it are, and it helps you feel supported in other ways. Because I'll be honest with you, I hate day planning. I don't enjoy it, but I do it because of the results. And there's other ways for me to make it something I look forward to. But anyway, let's say you plan that ideal and that works, but you're not always going to have ideal days. So what you need to do is have a baseline version of that habit. A baseline is the smallest and simplest version that you can do on your worst of day, like a less than ideal day when your energy is low or when there's so much going on, like when baseball season starts, like so much of what we can normally do in a day, it changes. Maybe you started your period. Maybe somebody's sick. Like right now, my 3-year-old woke up with strep again for the second time in like 3 weeks, So things like that happen. And I was up with him a lot. So we need to have flexible versions of our habits that allow us to have the consistency we need from that habit, the support. So you did that. Even just you going to the gym was you being consistent. Yeah. But you could even have a different version. Like, what if you just walk on the treadmill instead of your really hard, intense class? Maybe for journaling, maybe, on an ideal day, I would love to write a paragraph. And that seems reasonable.
Right.
But if you're not in the habit already of journaling, you're going to have a less than ideal day pretty soon. So what is your flexible baseline version of that? Maybe it's I write one line. Okay. And that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
I had a woman who, once she learned about the baseline principle, actually, she applied that to journaling. She said, for years, I've told myself I need to journal for 20 minutes a day. For literal years, I've had that standard in my head and I've never been able to be consistent with it. So once I learned the baseline, I told myself just 5 minutes. And not only have I been able to consistently have that habit, which again is more times than not, it may not be every single day she has it, but more times than not. She said, not only am I consistent, but I have found I actually don't even need the time I thought I did. I don't need a 20-minute journaling session. And we can find that with a lot of habits too, where that prescription may be working against us from even having what we need from the habit. So baselines are really powerful. They give us consistency. They also are our net on days like net that catches us on days where we are having less than ideal times. But they also have building potential. They build very easily towards the ideal. And just like you can build towards your ideal, your baselines build too. So what you can do on your worst of day will be able to change eventually to a higher baseline than before.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you are the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Traditional banks are making it harder than ever to secure a small business loan. That's why thousands of business owners trust Cardiff for same-day funding. With over 2 decades of expertise, business owners keep voting Cardiff America's favorite small business lender. Apply now for up to $500,000 in same-day business funding at cardiff.co/Spotify. Again, that's cardiff.co/Spotify. Cardiff, borrow better.
I love this idea of the baseline habits because it's something that you kind of think in the back of the mind with your kids too. My son always complains about loading the dishwasher and pushes it off because I think in his head, it's going to take so much more time than it actually does. So by doing a baseline habit, you go in there and you're like, this was not nearly the task that I thought it was. And it totally resets your mindset about it.
It's kind of physics being translated to habits. A ball in motion stays in motion. When you do something with the baseline version, you're often able to do even just a little bit more. And how good do you feel when you write 2 lines in your journal instead of just your baseline, even though your ideal is like a paragraph? Or how good do you feel if you're like, all I need to do is walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes at the gym, and then you walk 30 or 40. And then you're like, look at me, like I am so good. And that's a big part of habit formation too, is it all goes deeper. It's not just what we do, it's the way we see ourselves. And it's the way we're supporting ourselves. And that's another part of why we do habits differently as women is we are supporting the identity as we go. We're rebuilding an identity.
Yeah. And I think like it helps also to have a baseline, because if you can show up imperfectly each day, you think like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, but it ends up being amazing. One example I have of this is I ran marathons in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And before that, I was always really hard on myself on running. I'd be like, oh, I'm not a runner. I don't want to run. And then I made this commitment through a charity organization where I raised money for them. And then I went on training runs. They gave us this big training calendar, Monica, which was like 4 practice runs during the week and then a big long run on Saturdays. So my little like baseline, I realize now, is 1 run during the week and attending the long runs to the best of my ability, where I
That's
would
awesome.
walk a lot of the run. During the process of training for the marathon, I was like, I'm not that great. Oh, I'm walking too much. Oh, this. But look who completed a marathon. I did. And
That's
at the end of
amazing.
it, I realized that, you know what? I don't have to show up perfectly to achieve something. I just have to like show up a little bit and just keep trying day after day, and just the act of showing up is what improves, not necessarily doing it perfectly.
I think that's an amazing example, because we can all think of the times in our lives where our perfectionism, like our demand for perfection, cost us our consistency and things that we loved.
Yeah.
That was true for me with dance and art and performing arts and, whole sorts of things. Like, so if people are scared who are listening, if they're like listening and they're thinking, the only way I can change is if I'm hard on myself. That's it. There is another way. And I want you to think of, has it actually been working for you? Maybe like me, you have parts of it that look like it was paying off, but there are other prices you are paying that made it not worth it, or it wasn't sustainable. Then it wasn't working for you. Actually, it never was working. So maybe you can try a different way. This is an important time to also talk about compassion. A big part of how we do progress differently in habits too is we have a different compassionate voice in our mind. And compassion does not equate apathy. We're not lying to ourselves. Compassion is about being honest with ourselves, but moving forward in a way we're allowed to stay on the path. One way I can put that for people who are still afraid, and I get it because it is scary to do things differently. Shame is the fear that you cannot change, and compassion is the faith that you absolutely can. And that's what you did for yourself. When you were allowed to be flexible with your approach to that marathon, you were able to literally cross that finish line. Right. Because of a more compassionate approach. And so this is one of those things where the proof is in the pudding. You have to be courageous enough to try and do things differently and see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So like the mom listening who has tried to change something over and over and over again and has constantly in her mind failed, what actually makes a habit sticky?
Okay, there's a lot of elements here. And I'll start by saying we first have to understand that prescription model and how much it is hurting us. So if there's a habit where you keep failing, I want you to get really objective and really honest with yourself and say, did I actually want that habit? Did I actually need that habit? And if so, did I design it in a way that I was right for my season and time? Stop blaming yourself and start looking at the facts at play. Okay. And then with that, you can make a habit sticky by following a few maxims. One is, it's supportive. You decide like, is this habit actually supportive of my life? And have I designed it in a way where it's giving me the help that I need in a particular area or for a particular time of day? Because sometimes we just know there's a really hard time of day and we're just using the wrong habit to support ourselves during that time. We just need a different habit. So 1, ensure it's supportive. 2, make sure it's small, meaning make sure it's not a routine you're trying to put in place. A routine is a series of habits strung together that serve a singular purpose or meet a need for a time of day, like a morning routine or maybe a skincare routine or a meal prep routine. Those are great and we can aspire to them. And as we work towards them, our routines will become habit because they will be so easy and fluid. But to get there, we have to actually break it down into habits. Ensure that you're actually starting with one habit, not a multi-step routine that you think is supposed to be a habit. And then as part of that, also ensure that you have a simple version of it, meaning the baseline. What's your smallest and simplest version? Cast a vision of your ideal for sure. If you know it's supportive for the season, then ensure that you have designed it in a way that you have an ideal that's right for you. But then you also need to have a simple version to ensure that it's going to stick. And finally, with that, make sure it's specific. And this is where I'm going to pull in the sticky habit formula. Those habit bros aren't all bad. Like there's many principles that we can extract from what they've taught.
I like that name, Habit Bros.
Habit Bros.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of those things is habit stacking. Habit stacking is just a way for us to train our brains. And that's a big part of where you may have gotten lost in the past is you've been relying only on that willpower discipline piece without missing that forming habits isn't just a willpower thing. It's mostly a brain thing. It's about training our brains. It's like training the basis part of our brains, which, by the way, love things to stay the same. And so even a good change is going to read as stress to your brain and body, and it's going to resist the change as much as possible. So you've got to train your brain just like you would train a toddler who's learning to use the potty. And that means you get really specific about when this habit is happening and you attach it to an already existing habit from that time. So if, let's say you want to go for a walk each morning, even if you're like, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk each morning, and you're like, that's supportive. It's small. My simple version can be like, I go on a 10-minute walk because I don't even go for a 30-minute walk right now. So that's a good thing. But if it's not specific enough, if you're just saying morning, you're going to forget. Or other things are going to come up. You're just going to ride the productivity wave that we get on at home, or if we're doing things at work too. So you've got to really get specific about what is actually happening in the morning. Do you wipe off the counters, or do you vacuum, or do you throw out the trash, or what's something that you tend to almost always do? That is a habit. One, a lot of people don't realize they have habits because they're habit. So find one that you can then attach the new habit to. And that's what I call the when then pairing. So let's say for this woman, it's when she's done wiping off the counters, then she knows it's time for her to go for her walk. So when I'm done wiping off my counters, then I'll go for my walk. That's your when then pairing. Then there's an after. There's 3 steps to the sticky habit formula. When is the existing habit, then is the new habit, and then after. This is where we really train our brains with positive reinforcement. And that can look like a literal reward, like putting a bead in a jar, or watching a YouTube video that you love to watch, or calling a friend, or blasting a song, or lighting a candle. But I find the simplest reinforcement is internal, and it's also the most impactful. It's reminding yourself that this is who I am. And this comes from Lanny Basham, who was an Olympic athlete and turned coach, who really worked on mindset just as much as the skill sets with his athletes. And one of the things he would have his athletes do is every single time they do anything that is even remotely close to them being the athlete they want to be, anytime they call it out by saying, that's like me. And that's what we can apply to ourselves. Yeah. So let's say that woman, she does a when then pairing. Today's just a baseline day, so she can only go for a walk around the block because little Timmy's sick at home, or because she has a work project due, or a meeting that has to happen sooner. She gets a 10-minute walk in, and instead of being like, I can only do 10 minutes today, or what a bummer, or getting lost in it, she says, that's like me. That's I did it. That's who I am. That's who I am.
I do something kind of similar. When I finish a workout, I'm like, good job. I pat myself on the back. I'm like, good job, JoAnn.
It can literally be something like that. I have clients who do a Tiger Woods fist pump to themselves, or they put their hand on their heart and they say, good job. And it seems so foreign because it is. This is not the way we usually function. With time, the positive reinforcement will fade away. It's supposed to. This is just behavior design. We're training our brains to know that creates feel-good chemicals in me. Your brain and body are going to want more of that.
Oh, I love that.
And so that's how we're hacking the brain, is we're like, hey, that felt good, right? We want more of that. And as habits go deeper, it's not just changing a habit, it's changing the way you see yourself. So even on a baseline day, you are reshaping your identity as someone who does follow through, who is in fact consistent.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny. I started doing that because I realized that I love validation, and I knew that no one was going to validate me unless it was me in the morning, because there's no one else to see it.
Yeah, our brains love this. And here's the one thing. I think, JoAnn, you have done an amazing job of this yourself. If we can talk about one of the foundational reasons why we need to do habits differently beyond the invisible labor piece, it's because we can already do this in many ways if we are being intuitive and listening to ourselves. You did this all without me having to teach it to you. There's parts of ourselves that know how this actually can look. And maybe we're applying it to our children or to certain areas of our lives, but not others, or to ourselves. And that's where we can take back our own voice, our internal voice, our own power. And it's all right there for us. We can have these habits that stick and be consistent.
So for the mom who's listening right now, who just feels completely overwhelmed, doesn't know how to start, what is one tiny thing she could do today?
I would ask yourself, what is the roughest time of day for me? And during that time of day, how do I want to feel? And then from there, brainstorm what habits would create that feeling.
I love that.
Kind of reverse engineer it. Again, if habits are helpers, don't go right to the prescriptions of like, you should have these kind of habits. Instead, think what will actually create that feeling for me during this time of day. And then you can go through that whole process that I did with those 4 maxims of making sure it's supportive, small, simple, and specific.
Yeah.
But just start with that question. How do I want to feel at this time of day?
Excellent. And you have a book coming out in September. Tell us all about it.
It's Sticky Habits. The subtitle is It's a Guide for Women to Reclaim Their Happiness, Ditch Perfectionism, and Create Habits That Last. And in the first part, I teach them about why we must do habits differently. I go into all the research. I teach them how to redefine habits, just kind of like we were doing today. But then we go into that step by step. There's a whole lot more there of the practical side too. We also talk about, and when I say we, I mean me, bad habits and how to revise them in ways that follow a lot of what we're doing to form good habits, actually. So they can get it right now by going to stickyhabitsbook.com, and that's a plural habits. So stickyhabitsbook.com. And we do have pre-order bonuses going on right now.
Oh my gosh, I love a good pre-order bonus. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's fun.
Well, thank you, Monica, so much for coming on and sharing like how moms and women in general can create habits that actually work in our lives without like shaming ourselves for things the habit bros say to us.
Yeah. I'm so glad I had this opportunity.
And for everyone out there listening, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk with you later. If you'd like to support the show further, you can share episodes with your loved ones, leave a positive review, or follow us on social media at No Guilt Mom. You can also show your love by visiting our amazing podcast sponsors. We have a link in the show notes.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.